Hey, Taylor Elwood here, and today I thought I would do a video about what is retroactive magic, answering really the question, what is retroactive magic? Because every so often I get someone who contacts me and says, hey, I heard you're the guy who wrote that book, Space-Time Magic, and I want to know what is retroactive magic and how can I work with it? What does it involve? And of course, I suggest they read the book, and sometimes they do, but I figured today what I'm going to do instead is just tell you a bit about what retroactive magic is and how it works and also how it doesn't work. So here's what I find. When most people ask me about retroactive magic, what they're really concerned with is, can I go back in time and change an event that happened in the past? And that's not how retroactive magic works. Sorry. I can just tell you that right now. So what is retroactive magic then? Retroactive magic really involves working with not your literal physical past, but rather your memory of the past. And it involves changing that memory of the past in order to influence the probabilities and possibilities that are available to you in the present and future. So, in other words, let's say that you had something happen to you in the past and you didn't like the way you responded to it. You can't literally go back and change that event in past. Sorry, you can't. Unless someone comes along and invents a time machine where you can go into the past and go do whatever you want to do, you really can't. And if they do, well, that'll bring its own interesting realities into play, I suppose. But it hasn't happened yet. I haven't been able to do it. I don't know anyone else who can do it. But what you can do is you can work with the memory of that event. And what you can do is change that memory, change the way you interacted and what you did. And what happens is when you make those changes, they carry forward into your present and into your future. So you may find that you're a different person, that you act a different way than you would have before, or that the possibilities that you wanted to explore in the future suddenly have some additional possibilities because of the fact that you went and changed that memory. You may say, well, Taylor, why can't we just literally change the actual past itself? And the answer to that is, again, goes back to the fact that, so far as I know, nobody can travel back into the past. And retroactive magic isn't traveling back into the past. It's working with your memory. You might say, well, that's great, but is that even really all that great for us to use? I mean, what's the point of working with your past memory if you can't literally change something? And the answer to that is, first of all, that our memory is actually very powerful in its own way. And here's a little secret for you, something to contemplate and meditate upon. Your memory is actually your imagination. Now, if that throws you for a loop or you're kind of like, what does that mean? I'm just going to tell you, meditate on it and think about it and contemplate it. Your memory is your imagination. So the thing about our imagination is that our imagination is how we are able to access and recognize probabilities and possibilities in our lives. I mean, that's where they dwell. It's how we're able to create things. It's how we're able to access the super consciousness of all life and other things like that. At least according to me, it is. And so our memory is just another form of that. It's an extension of imagination. It just goes backwards into the past. And so when we're working with our memory, we're essentially working with our imagination, and we're changing what we can do. Because here's the thing, in the realm of imagination, what you're really dealing with are probabilities. And your memory is just another form of probability. And you have access to all the probabilities that are in that memory that you can work with. It's just that what you're doing with those probabilities is you're applying them forward to your present and future, as opposed to changing your past. And that's really what retroactive magic is. It's the application of probability to the past, but it's done to change the present and future instead of the past. That's what that's what retroactive magic boils down to. We change our past memory in order to influence our present and future. But we're not literally changing the past. We're just changing the memory and the probabilities that are, and accessing the probabilities that are available in that memory. Because if we understand that memory is a function of imagination, then what we also understand is that the probabilities are still there. We may have chosen one specific probability in our past, one that we don't like, and that is why we want to go and change things. But when we go back into the memory of that time and that period, we have access to those probabilities, and as a result, we can access those probabilities, do something different in the memory, and carry it forward into the present and future. At this point, you might say, okay, Taylor, that sounds great, but does that literally physically change my present and or future? If I do this retroactive magic, will I change my present? Will I suddenly wake up in another bed besides another person, et cetera, et cetera? That's not how retroactive magic works. Remember, we're dealing with probability, not physical reality. We're dealing with probability. So if you go and you work with a probability in your memory and you apply that forward, what it's going to change is it's going to change the probabilities that are available to you. It's not going to change your literal physical presence. You're still going to wake up in the same bed. You're still going to wake up beside the same person. You're still going to have the other things, but you're going to have other probabilities available to you. Probabilities that have potentially been blocked out way back when in that past moment when you did whatever action you did. And that's the thing to understand. This is the thing to understand about retroactive magic. It's not all powerful. It's very limited in its own way. And what I'm describing here are both the limits and the benefits. The limit is you're working within a memory and the probabilities of those memories. The benefit is you're bringing those probabilities forward into your present and future as a way to access them and act on them. And so you may find that all of a sudden you have certain probabilities or awareness of probabilities that you did not have before you did the retroactive magic working. You may find that some events fall into play that allow things to come in, that allow a desired result to come into play that otherwise might not have been possible because you went and you changed the memory of the past event. I emphasize all this because this can be a little confusing, and I recognize that, but also because I don't want to get people's hopes up. All right, I have not gone back in time and changed my physical past. Okay, I want to be very clear about that. Are there certain things I would like to change in my past? Yes. I have not changed those things. What I have done is I have changed the memory of some of those things. And as a result, that's opened up some probabilities and manifested some desired results in my present or future at the time when I did the retroactive magic working. And that's the key thing to understand. I don't want people to get their hopes up that they can do retroactive magic and suddenly undo a car accident that happened to them in the past, okay? Sorry, has not happened as of yet. It's just kind of the reality of it. I don't know anyone who's been able to go into the past and undo a car accident or undo the death of a loved one or change something else. And I'm just telling you that because I don't want you to get your hopes up about something like that. I mean, if there ever comes a point in time where physical time travel is invented, well, then you might be able to go back into the past and do that. But I think it's very telling that so far as we can tell, there really are no time travelers. Or if there are time travelers, they hide themselves very, very, very well and blend in as much as possible because they're trying not to change, whatever it is that they have access to as a result of the way we've lived our lives. I think it's also important to really consider that time is a lot more mutable than we think of it. We've kind of been sold on the linear time model, past, present, and future. But really, time is much more about probability and manifestation. What's probable versus what's manifested. Once something's manifested, the probabilities are limited. But we can access those probabilities within the imagination, within the memory, and use those as a way to carry forward probabilities and possibilities that can open up opportunities for us. We still have to deal with the limitations of material reality. There's kind of an interesting thing. Here's an interesting thing for you to meditate upon. In probability, you have more power, but in manifestation, you have form. And what form does is it limits power, but it also manifests reality. Whereas in probability, you have no form, you have lots more power, but the power that you have nonetheless has no real lasting effect until it takes form. It's when something transitions from probability to form to materialization that it becomes something manifest. And that power is exchanged in order to take on that particular form. Again, something for you to consider and meditate upon. So I just wanted to share that today. I've been asked this question many different times. Hopefully this answers this question. And I'll be putting it up on YouTube as well. And of course, I'll also be writing about this again in the next book I write about space-time magic, which is one of my planned books at some point in the future whenever I get done with Alchemy of Life. All right, so that's it, and take care. Talk to you later.